It's official. The bear attack season is underway. In the course of one weekend, we've already had one attack in Grand Teton National Park, as well as another attack in British Columbia. Now, we know more about the British Columbia attack, where a 36-year-old hunter and his father were tracking a bear with the aid of some dogs, when an adult grizzly, likely as a defensive measure, charged and attacked the son. The son was able to ward off the attack with his firearm, but suffered, quote, significant injuries, including broken bones and serious lacerations. Now, Canadian police, paramedics, and conservation officers were able to respond to the attack and perform a helicopter recovery. And the hunter is reported to be in stable condition, and I certainly wish him a speedy recovery. But this event, like all other bear attacks, is again a treasure trove of life-saving insights. But if past is prologue, I fully expect the news reports and most internet commentators are going to neglect the critical life-saving takeaways. So I thought we'd buck that trend and examine what should be learned from this incident. Now, this is an extremely recent attack. The victim is still in the hospital and details are scarce, so naturally there are going to be limits on what reasonable conclusions can be made. And this is actually quite common. We like to pretend that the internet holds all information, but it doesn't. And various bear attack details are often obscured for three reasons. First, privacy laws and policies. Most of the details about bear attacks are kept confidential, which is totally understandable. We do sometimes get greater access to those details if exhaustive reports are filed, or if the individuals involved or their family members decide to share a little bit about their experience. But generally speaking, we're not going to get all the information. The second reason details are sometimes hard to come by is that journalists and internet personalities reporting on bear attacks often don't know enough about bears or bear safety to ask the victim or authorities the right questions. And the third reason details are sometimes missing is because bear attacks are often chaotic. So even survivors and witnesses can't always recall the pertinent details. With those considerations, there's still a lot we do know based on official statements and reports. First, we know that the victim used his gun to defend himself, but we don't know what gun or ammunition he used. Since he was out hunting, I assume black bears because British Columbia banned hunting grizzlies in 2017, the most likely answer is that he used his hunting gun, most likely a rifle, to defend himself. Though, because he's in Canada, if he was licensed to carry a pistol, there is also a chance that he used a sidearm. We also know that he was hunting with his father at the time, so he wasn't alone, and his father was able to respond and get help.
Get help! Please! Get help! Help! Classic.
But we don't know their proximity to each other during the attack, and proximity is hugely important when discouraging aggression by bears. Based on a photo that was released by British Columbia conservation officers, we know that they were moving through extremely heavy cover, which would have negated much chance of advanced warning. We also know that dogs played a role. Now, according to reports, they were actually tracking a bear at the time of the attack. It's unknown whether they were accidentally tracking a grizzly, thinking it was a black bear, or if they were tracking another bear and their paths just crossed with a grizzly. But what we do know is that the correlation between dogs and bear attacks has been very well established. The presence of a dog was a likely contributor to the fatal attack that occurred in Banff National Park just last September. And dogs generally, including hunting dogs, have been connected to various bear attacks in the past. But for whatever reason, news reports and most internet commentators keep neglecting to address the role that dogs frequently play in bear attacks. Now, the most common retort that I hear from people is that, well, dogs are used to hunt bears, so clearly dogs aren't a problem. And what I would say to that is that two things can be true at the same time. So yes, dogs are frequently used to hunt bears, but that doesn't change the fact that the mere presence of a dog, and especially aggressive behavior by a dog, can frequently turn a retreating bear into an attacking bear. I would be very surprised if that wasn't exactly what happened in this case. Hunting dogs are trained to pursue and corner bears, and it should not at all be surprising that a cornered bear or a bear that feels threatened can be a very dangerous animal to deal with. Now, dogs are often injured in contests with bears, but they are typically much faster and more nimble than their human counterparts. This means that dogs are more likely to evade an attack and then inadvertently lead a supercharged bear back to their owners, who then routinely become the bear's target and are injured as a result. Now, hunters in particular are among the most at risk of conflicts with bears for a variety of reasons, but their use of dogs in pursuing wild animals is among the contributing factors. This particular attack offers a unique opportunity to confront an appalling double standard used by many on the internet who are trying to undermine confidence in bear spray. Now, I don't know if the victim or his dad had bear spray on their persons. And as I've said before, attacks are chaotic, and it's certainly possible that the victim or his father had spray but chose to use the firearm instead. Or perhaps the victim already had the firearm in their hand and was ready to fire and simply concluded that was his best option. Whatever the case, sometimes a firearm is the right choice, and it clearly worked here, not only because the victim was able to halt the attack, but we also know that the bear was later found by authorities and that it had died as a result of its injuries. But I want to ask you, if the victim in this case had used bear spray and had still incurred injuries, which does happen sometimes, how do you think the internet would be responding to this attack? Here we have a case of someone who successfully used a firearm to deter an attacking bear and yet was still injured. And given the severity of his injuries, had he chosen bear spray as his defensive tool, I guarantee you the internet would be trying to tell you that the bear spray quote unquote failed. And there are times where it seems like bear spray didn't get the job done. Certainly there was the attack in Banff National Park last year. Let me give you perhaps the most popular example of this overt and shameless double standard. If you watch my recent video and discussion with Todd Orr, who was attacked twice after spraying a mother grizzly with bear spray, then you know that people have been using Todd's experience for years to argue that bear spray, quote, doesn't work. It's complete and total nonsense. Even in Todd's case, the bear spray worked, though it could have certainly worked better. In this case, the firearm also worked, though there's no doubt that it could have also worked better. Without being able to speak to the victim in this case, who I'll remind you is currently hospitalized, the exact order of events, shot placement, firearm type, ammunition will remain unknown. But even with all those unknowns, it's not at all surprising that he suffered significant injuries. In the right hands, the proper firearm can be very effective at deterring aggression by bears. But the very best data that we have suggests that gun users suffer a 50% injury rate during conflicts with bears. That is far, far higher than the roughly 2 to 4% injury rate of bear spray users. So I am here to tell you that while the right gun in the right hands is an unquestionable asset, there will never be a good argument to not also carry and be proficient with bear spray. Now, we also know that when compared with grizzlies and polar bears, that firearms are statistically about 38 times more likely to discourage aggression by black bears. So again, the victim's injuries are not at all surprising. Now, I cover all of this in my guns versus bear spray video. So if you want to skip the internet's general unhelpfulness and better understand the factual, statistical data on the effectiveness of guns and bear spray, then make sure to click above and watch my guns versus bear spray video here. It's the absolute best resource that you will find anywhere on this topic. Now, sharing facts about deterrence has often led some to accuse me of being, quote, anti-gun. But if you've followed the channel for very long, you know that's a nonsensical accusation. But that doesn't change the fact that some gun users take issue with the documented 50% injury rate that I have shared here. But that opposition is completely wrong-headed, and I'll tell you why. Responsible and proficient gun owners need to embrace that 50% injury rate because it is chock full of amazing life-saving insights, which I'm going to dissect in my 2 coming videos. The first will discuss how ever-trusted revolvers have failed during bear attacks, and whether a revolver or semi-auto handgun is, quote, better. And after that, I'll be publishing a video addressing why most internet resources advocating for firearms as bear defense are actually setting you up for failure, and what you can do to carry a firearm for self-defense effectively and responsibly when in the backcountry. So make sure to stay tuned. And until then, this is Mike, reminding you that the internet, like a firearm or bear spray or any other tool, is an asset when used correctly and a liability when used incorrectly.